Get debate. France woke up this morning to news of what the Interior Minister has labelled the summary execution of 3 Kurdish activists. The 3 women included Sakine Janziz, one of the founding members of the outlawed PKK, the Kurdistan Workers' Party. Their bodies found overnight at the offices of the Kurdish Information Center in central Paris. They hadn't been seen since yesterday. Police say the killer or killers used silencers. The murders happened the day after Turkey's government formalized the opening of talks with the PKK's jailed leader Abdullah Öcalan, part of a bid to end fighting that's claimed tens of thousands of lives since the uprising began in 1984. A bid to thwart the peace process from Kurdish or Turkish extremists, or is it internal score settling? Today in the France 24 debate, we're going to be asking who done it and put the Kurdish question in the context of tumultuous change, not just in Turkey, but in the wider region. With us, joining us, he's the former Le Monde correspondent in Turkey, who for years worked at UNESCO. Political scientist Ali Kazansigil is the director of the Anatoly Geopolitics Journal. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Also with us, Dorothée Schmidt of the French International Relations Research Center, IFRI. Thank you for being with us. And joining us from London, we welcome Shwan Zulal, Kurdish blogger and political and security risk analyst. The France 24 debate, where you can join the conversation on Facebook and Twitter, our hashtag F24debate. The bodies were discovered overnight, but the 3 women hadn't been heard from since lunchtime on Wednesday. News quickly spread, sparking Kurds to demonstrate in Marseille and Paris, where they converged on the scene of the crime, the information center of Kurdistan in the capital's 10th arrondissement. France 24's Jade Barker followed the gatherers as they made their way to the Kurdish Cultural Institute.
The motive behind the shooting is still unclear and investigations are ongoing. Now, once the bodies of those 3 women were removed from the Kurdish Institute, the demonstrators then marched here to the Kurdish Cultural Center just around the corner. And they've been gathered here for hours. As you can see behind me, people have come here from all across the country, all around France. There's said to be around 150,000 members of the Kurdish community living here. And they've come to talk about what happened and to grieve. And so it's got a very somber atmosphere in here. Inside the cultural centre, it's almost like a funeral. There's pictures of the 3 victims, and people have come here to talk about what happened, and they're calling for answers. But what everyone has been telling us is that they believe this incident was politically motivated, that it wasn't just a random act of crime.
We are really shocked with this assassination in a city like Paris, the heart of Europe. And we can't believe that such an assassination can happen here in Paris, in Europe. Kurdish people feel that there was a possibility for a peace process in Turkey. Somebody wants to kill the hopes for a peaceful solution in Turkey.
Now, they're calling for another demonstration to be held this Saturday, and what's clear is that it's definitely sparked more anger and feelings of victimization from this Kurdish community who've long said that they feel victimized by the Turkish government.
All right, somebody wants to kill the hopes for peace. Before we react to that statement, let's get a couple of official reactions, starting with that of the French president.
It's horrible, and I knew these 3 people, and many political actors knew them too, because they often came to see us for meetings.
Dorothée Schmidt, French president, saying that he knew these people well. It's a bit of an ambiguous relationship, isn't it? Because the PKK is considered a terrorist organization by the EU, and yet one of the co-founders was here in Paris and working here. What is the relationship between the PKK, between Kurdish activists and the French government?
I think you should probably reboot this in the specific context of the relationship between the Socialist Party and the Kurdish cause. As you know, in the 80s, when François Mitterrand was the French president, his wife was very active in supporting the Kurdish cause. And so I guess the Kurdish question became a sort of a very popular theme to be discussed in France, and it gained there was wide awareness among the French public about the difficulties, the political difficulties of the Kurds, first in Turkey and then later on during the first Gulf War in Iraq. So I guess François Hollande's reaction has to be taken, probably understood in that context, like understanding that the French left had relationship with several Kurdish associations. It doesn't mean that he endorses the PKK stance for violence, war, or whatever, if anything is changing by now.
And the most famous of the three, Sakine Canziz, Şuan Zulal, what can you tell us about her?
Well, I'm not sure if I can tell much about her, but from what I know, because I don't know her personally, but from what I know, she's known as one of the founders of PKK, and she was quite close to Abdullah Öcalan, who the Turkish government has started talking recently with. And to me, this whole episode of assassination is designed to derail the peace talk, which just has started, in this fledgling process, which many years people have been talking about it, and it's just about to start. And this incident is clearly designed to derail it, and obviously it plays in the hand of people in the region, or powers in the region, which are not happy for these changes to take place. And if you look at this in a context of looking in the region in particular, in the Kurdish situation, the dynamics are changing. Obviously in Iraq, we have the Kurdish autonomous region, and there's been a lot of talk of independence and separation from Iraq. And we have Syria, where the Kurds are sort of taking control of the Kurdish part in the Kurdish region there. And this, obviously, negotiation with the PKK and in Turkey has started in the background of all these events. But and many people are starting to call it the Kurdish Spring, coming out of the Arab Spring. But the reality is, this is not bad. This is not good for the peace talk, which many people in Turkey who are yearning for. I've just saw a poll today from Metropole, I believe. 40% of the Turkish public wants negotiation. In contrast with last year, it was about 10%. So you can see the shift in even the public opinion in Turkey, where usually they're quite hostile to any idea of negotiation with Kurdish, especially with the PKK. But
so it's happening. It's happening, as you say, in the context of those negotiations that are opening up. Let's show you a couple of the headlines from the Turkish papers. Today's Zaman, the English language version of Zaman, headlining on the roadmap for peace that's been unveiled, with both Zaman and the English language version of Hurriyet pointing to the strong language used in this context by the Turkish Prime Minister. The preliminary talks in no way signaling a ceasefire, Recep Tayyip Erdogan said on a visit to Niger. There you see him in the company of the Niger's president. Erdogan, who, by the way, is now in Senegal, where he's reacted to the assassinations in Paris.
This could be an internal feud. In the meantime, we are fighting against terror. We want to make progress in our struggle. But there are some who don't like our progress. This also could be a provocation by those people. For this reason, it would be better to be patient until light is shed on this.
Ali Kazansigil, Turkish Prime Minister, saying same thing basically as the rest of the panel, that it could be extremists who don't have an interest in peace. Who are these? Which extremists? Are they Turkish? Are they Kurdish?
Well, on both sides, you have, let's say, hawkish groups who are not in agreement with the perspective of a peace, of a settlement, simply because they get a sort of a rent from the conflict. From on the Turkish side, you have a lot of organizations, security organizations, more or less legal, which have been created around the army.
Paramilitary groups?
Paramilitary groups, some of them are illegal. They have been committing assassinations, etc., in Turkey against the Kurds. And these people are obviously going to lose their their raison d'être, as they say in French, indeed. On the other side, the PKK side, you have certain groups in PKK which are against a settlement because they fear that in this case, the PKK would lose its raison d'être. So you have these three assassinations may come from either side. In the Turkish press that I consulted this morning, the media people were split. Some were saying it might be PKK, others it might be these secret networks around the Turkish state. So in any case, there is an unanimity in Turkey and also here that this is directed against the peace process.
Şuanzula, will it succeed in derailing the process?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Will these assassinations succeed in derailing the peace process?
Well, given the history of the region and the the nature of the politician there, I would say probably yes, and it's probably going to at least stall it for the time being, because obviously politics nature in that region is quite emotional and is conducted on basis of personal level, and this could sort of derail talk. But I mean, what I wanted to say, I agree with the previous gentleman. What's happening now? I mean, there are obviously a lot of speculation about who done it and which group, whether Kurdish or Turkish. I mean, whoever is behind this is clearly the timing is designed to stop the peace talk, and this will create an excuse for either side to stop this negotiation. And in my opinion, and this shouldn't happen, because a lot of people have been waiting for this moment to arrive, where at least start talking and stop all the sort of atrocities and the sort of killing from both sides and all the extremism. And then now once again we have the extremist voices heard. And one other note on that event, on the assassinations today, I mean, it's clearly targeted women, because obviously the emotion around it and so on. And this hasn't happened, as far as I remember, this hasn't happened in Europe before.
All right, it hasn't happened in Europe before. We're pleased to welcome at this point Kendal Nizan, president of the Kurdish Institute of Paris. Obviously, it's been a very emotional day for you. When you found out about the news, what was your first reaction?
Well, actually, it was sometime around 7:30 or 7:20. So a phone call and telling that 3 Kurdish women were killed at the Kurdish Institute this night. And I couldn't realize how 3 Kurdish women could be killed, shot dead in the Kurdish Institute. So I rushed to the institute at around 15 past 8, and I saw that there was nothing around the institute. So I thought that
it was the wrong address.
The wrong address, but that was dispatched from Agence France Presse, and because for the people, when you say Kurdish, Rue Lafayette.
So is there any relationship between the Kurdish Institute and the Information Center of Kurdistan where it happened?
Not at all, not exactly. Well, we know, of course, each other. That's the same Kurdish community, but the Kurdish Institute is a cultural institution with educational and cultural programs. And the most important event for us was a photo exhibit about the Kurds in Khorasan in Iran, organized by an Iranian photographer. So it was really a shock because I knew personally 2 of the victims, especially Fidan Doğan, who was sort of PR for the Kurdish MPs coming from Turkey. So she was accompanying them as an interpreter to go and see French political parties, NGOs, media. She was brought up in France, and the other victim also, Sakine, was a very well-known figure of the PKK movement, because she was one of the founders of this movement, and she spent 12 years in the Turkish prison. So she was the real target. She was a known personality. So
she was the real target.
She was the real target, I think, yeah, because she was close to the let's say, to the PKK's leader, Öcalan, and she was among the people who were for a compromise to find a peaceful settlement for the Kurdish problem in Turkey, at least to put an end to the armed struggle and to open, to pave the way for a democratic process in order to solve this problem, which has been there for now decades and decades, and which has caused a lot of misery, a lot of tragedy to both people, but especially to the Kurds. 45,000 people killed, almost 90% of them Kurds. More than 3,000 Kurdish villages destroyed, 2 million people displaced. So it is a real human tragedy. We have to put an end to this war, and that was a process initiated by the Turkish government, and which was raising a lot of hopes. And I think that in each camp you have hardliners who are against such a settlement and who may have tried to sabotage this
interest in
process.
trying to sabotage it. You mentioned how you knew Fidan Doğan well. We can listen to her. This was last February when at a demonstration outside the European Parliament in Strasbourg.
We're making our voice heard more and more by the public and the European institutions. But the problem is that the European institutions do not want to hear our voice.
Can you tell us a little bit about Fidan Doğan?
Well, she was one of the young Kurdish girl of second generation, so raised in France, and she was attending from time to time our cultural events. People know each other, so there are links. There isn't the Great Wall of China between the political parties or the Kurdish communities, even if the political choices are different. So we knew her, and even President Holland said that he had met several times before as an activist. She went to the Socialist Party and arranged meetings with the French political cadres or people. So she was a nice militant activist, young Kurdish lady. She was appreciated in our community.
All right, we were mentioning just now how this, of course, is happening amid those talks that are right now at the beginning stage. We're going to look at it, and also the context of the broader region, as Şuan Zulal was pointing out. Stay with us. Part 2 of the France 24 debate is coming up.